Jason Garrett held my balls well. He was forced into the job out of necessity because I had fired my previous holder after our first regular season game on Monday Night Football. It was 2001, and we were teammates playing for the New York Football Giants. Jason and I struck up a unique friendship based on trust and powerful, productive communication. He was a fantastic teammate and very generous with his time and effort on something that to others may have seemed like an afterthought. He became one of the best holders I have ever had and added that skill set to an already impressive resume. Outstanding player, coach, and friend to many. Jason, welcome to Great Dane Nation, brother.
Hey, Morten, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for that introduction.
So I think we will start there with the holding. Was I a tough boss to work with on that deal?
You know what's amazing? I was telling the other coaches on our offensive staff the story this morning. Okay. Literally this morning in a staff meeting about when I became the holder with the Giants. I'd always kind of been a backup holder throughout my career, and we were there together in 2001. And if you remember, we played in Denver on Monday night, September 10th.
Yes.
Of 2001. And the things I remember from that game were Eddie McCaffrey, the receiver for Denver, who's someone I knew. He broke his leg in that game.
That's right.
And the other thing that I remember was, I think you missed an extra point, or
I'll tell you what happened. Rodney blocked it with his hand. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me, Jason. That's what put you into work real fast here, buddy.
Well, I'll never forget it. After that play, I'm on the sidelines, and you come over to me and you put your finger in my chest and say, "You're holding next week." So I'm like, "Oh, I'm holding." And sure enough, you remember those things, and then literally we fly back to New York, get in about 5 o'clock the next morning, and the world changed soon after that. And the other part to that story that I always remember is we obviously didn't play the game that coming week, and we played 2 weeks later against Kansas City.
Yeah.
And it was an incredibly emotional time for all of us. And we went down to ground zero and visited the site, visited the workers, the police stations, the firehouses, all of that. And then we had a game to play. And if you remember, we all felt a certain amount of pressure to perform in that game and to win that game, for the people in New York who had suffered so much. And I'll never forget, in that game, the game was somewhat close for a little while. And, I'm running out there, and we need to make a field goal late. And I'm like, oh, my God. When you're talking about pressure, I better get this ball down for the Great Dane. And
sure enough, you did.
Oh, well, you drilled it.
Well, you did, and I would rank you now. I said that in the intro. You were one of the best holders, and I think the reason, and then we'll move on to football stuff, but I think the reason you were really good at it, Jason, was you didn't brush it off. Rodney Williams just brushed it off. He didn't want to do it. Now, I know you didn't want to do it, but once you realized that you had to do it, or we didn't have an option, actually, then you kind of really delved into it a little bit. And I think we had some fun with it. And you and I used to watch film together and had a lot of fun with the, the laser, the dot, because I was pretty particular about the spot, and the lean and the laces and all that. So from your perspective, was that, you think I was unreasonable, or you thought I was just being, a professional that had to communicate that to you?
Well, Morten, you and I have had so many great times together, and you have an incredible personality. It's why you have the Great Dane podcast. You have this amazing way about you. And I always tell people the great, funny Morten Andersen stories, but I never tell them without telling the other part of it. And I tell them about that year that I was your holder. And you talk about professionalism, you take it to a whole nother level. And I've been fortunate in my career to play with Hall of Fame players, to coach Hall of Fame type players, and your approach always was a great illustration for me as a coach to tell young players what it takes. And there are a million stories, the time that we took, you and I literally would meet for a half hour, 45 minutes after practice. We would watch it. I was always so impressed by the notebooks that you kept. The special teams coach would sit out there with a picture of a goalpost and put a plus 24, right hash and show a picture of where the ball went through the goalpost. And the way you recorded everything, the way you approached everything going in, the way you handled yourself during the session, and then the feedback afterwards. At the end of the day, you were a big, strong guy with a talented leg, from Michigan State, but you're the greatest kicker in the history of the NFL because of the approach that you've taken. And that's been my experience with so many other players at other positions. I think about Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith or Michael Strahan or Michael Irvin, those kinds of rare players that we had a chance to be around. It was the same. They were so talented, but there are a lot of talented guys. To be the best of the best, you had to take that approach. And I look back so fondly on that year together because I learned so much. I learned so much from the best guy to ever do it. And I'm so grateful for that experience that we had together.
Thank you, Jason. That's kind words, and I really appreciate you saying that. I wasn't fishing for a compliment, but I'll sure take it from you. A guy from Princeton, of all places, an Ivy League team, grew up in Pennsylvania. You go to Princeton. Did you have to pinch yourself when you're standing on the sideline in Dallas? And let's start there since you mentioned Aikman. And you're next to a great Hall of Famer in Troy Aikman. What was your relationship like? First of all, playing for the Dallas Cowboys. At that point, we didn't know you were going to be a head coach for 9.5 years there, and an assistant coach as well. So, take me back to your playing days with the Cowboys. And I know you and I had some history as well in New Orleans, briefly, way back when. But it had to be special to be with Troy.
Yeah, and you said it. My dad was a football coach, so I was born in Pennsylvania, but we lived in Florida, Texas, Ohio, Louisiana, New Jersey. We moved all around, and I love football. I loved it. I can't begin to tell you how much I loved it growing up, and was fortunate to play on really good teams for really good coaches and had great teammates really throughout my career. And I went to Princeton and played there, but I was not drafted afterwards. So, I had an opportunity to sign as a free agent quarterback with the Saints, and that's where you and I first met. 1989, and I was on the practice squad there, and I was a fledgling football player. I wanted to play pro football, and I was certainly hanging on by a string, early on in my career, and I always say throughout my career. I played 14 years, but I was hanging on by a string every year, and that was the approach that I took. But early on, I was in New Orleans for a year, then I went to Canada. I played in the World League. I just was trying to be a pro football player because I loved it, and I wasn't going to give it up until it really exhausted the opportunity. And I had a chance to go to Dallas and ended up playing there for 8 years and was part of some great teams. My first year there was 92, and we ended up winning 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. And, it was all those guys. Jimmy Johnson's our coach, but Troy's our quarterback, and it's Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin. I can go on and on and on with the great, great players that I was around and the great teams I was around. And you said it, every so often you say, wow, what an amazing opportunity to be a part of this thing. And I was trying to embrace every day and maximize it. And I ended up playing there for 8 years. And then after that, I had a chance to go play for the Dolphins and eventually got into coach with the Giants, then the Dolphins, eventually got into coaching. But those experiences, when you're around great teams and when you're around great players and you have shared commitment and then you have success, it's incredible how impactful those things are. And back to you, I can remember your coaching points. Keep it fluffy. Give me a big ball to hit. Pull it towards you. Don't white knuckle it. All those things that we did together, they're with me. And that's 20 years ago. Yeah. And I felt the same way about some of those other experiences. When you're around great people and you have success and you put something in it together, those things stay with you and they make a huge impact. So I reflect back on all those experiences with great gratitude.
I think one of the most, I appreciate all those sentiments. It's so true. But I think at the base of it all is trust. And it sounds to me like you learned from an early age, probably from your dad, maybe. You can correct me if I'm wrong. the notion of accountability and trust and powerful communication. And did growing up in a football family, did that clarify for you, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life if I'm lucky enough, fortunate enough to do it?
Yeah, and I think all those things, go into the football playing experience. Football has been under attack a little bit because of head injuries and some other things that have happened. And, people always ask, would you let my son play football if you're growing up? And, tell me about the game. And I think football is as safe as it's ever been. I think the rules changes, the equipment changes, and all of that have it in a really good place right now. But whenever I've answered that question, I've talked about those very things that you're talking about: accountability, trust, teamwork, all the things that are so important in life. We were so fortunate to learn those things when we were young, playing football growing up. And it's not specific to football. You can learn those things in other sports and other endeavors. But I do know for a fact you learn them in football. And for whatever reason, I was so drawn to it. I love the game. I love the idea as a quarterback of getting into a huddle and trying to convince 10 other guys that they had to do their job on this play so we could go down and drive and score a touchdown and win a game and all of that. And everything that went into that was something I gravitated towards as a young age. And that's why, even though I was a free agent coming out of college, I wanted to maximize that opportunity. I could always go to something else, but once I did that, I could never go back. So I wanted to, even though it was 2, 3, 4 years out of school before I established myself as a player, it was worth it to me. And I'm so glad I did that, because the experience that I've had and the growth and development I had as a result have been significant.
Was there a defining moment, and I asked all my guests this, what was a defining moment where you decided, or when you knew that eventually you were going to be a coach? Because I always looked at you, and most of your time was spent on the sideline, holding the clipboard, listening to the plays, and being a player coach, really. Relaying plays in, maybe. I wasn't privy to all that, but I was usually over having a drink of Gatorade, and it's fourth down, I'd run in. But to your point about, that journey, being a backup quarterback maybe prepared you better to become a coach than being a starting quarterback, because you saw it with different eyes. You saw it from the sideline. You saw the bigger picture. Is that accurate? And at what point did you absolutely, definitely know, if I have an opportunity and my playing days are going to be over one day, I'm giving this a shot. I'm giving this a serious shot.
Yeah, I think your analysis is spot on. It's always better to play. The games that I was fortunate enough to start and play in, I remember the details of them. They're very impactful in my life because I didn't get that many chances. I played for a long time, but I was a backup, like you said, and it did allow me to kind of look at it maybe differently, look at it maybe more from a coach's perspective, and I think that helped me. I learned a lot from the other players that I played with, and certainly a lot from the coaches. But I think I also learned a lot from just focusing on, what was going on and paying attention. And I think that certainly helped me as a coach. People would ask me a lot, certainly when I got into my 30s and mid-30s, what are you going to do next? And I always kind of resisted that. I said, it took me a while to get here, so I'm going to maximize my playing days. I'm not really thinking about that. Kind of a burn the boats idea. I'm a player. And I was naive enough to think that somebody was going to give me a chance to be a starting quarterback even into my mid-30s. And
I love it.
Yeah. So, I was trying to maximize that, but I have to say my last year playing for the Giants, which was 2003, people had asked me about coaching and specific opportunities, and I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to maximize this chance to play. And I signed a contract with Tampa Bay. John Gruden was the coach. And if you remember, Brad Johnson and Chris Sims and Brian Greasy were the quarterbacks. And Rod Marinelli and other guys were down there in that staff. Rich Bisaccia was the special teams coach.
Pretty good.
So, yeah, I went down there with the idea that I'm going to play, but this is going to be my last year. This is going to be my graduate school for coaching. And I really took a very keen, deliberate eye towards, okay, let me really watch this meeting. Let me really watch how they're conducting this. Let me really watch how the whole thing's organized. I've been doing that for 15 years, but really specifically with the idea that I really want to maximize this chance because I think it'll help me grow as a coach. And after that year, I ended up being with Tampa for about a month and being with Miami for about a month and a half. And then I had a chance to get into coaching, and I took advantage of it.
How big a help was Gruden then? Because we know Gruden was a great offensive mind, obviously, very creative, very willing to take risks and in the design of his plays, unorthodox in many ways, very high energy. What did you take away? Are you telling me Gruden was maybe the guy that got you going, or was he was there and you had just decided, I'm here, he's here, let me soak it in and go?
Yeah, I mean, I was so fortunate. I had such good coaches. My dad was my best coach, but then all through high school and college and junior high, and then if you think about the NFL, being around Carl Smith, who you and I both know, and then Norv Turner, Ernie Zampese, Chan Gailey, Sean Payton, these guys that I had
bunch of guys,
just a lot of guys, and I was so fortunate to have these different exposures to different offenses. And then to have a chance to go down there and be with John, in Tampa was something that I'm like, boy, this will be really good. So, being a different system, seeing that system, how he coaches it, all that kind of rounded it out. And I went down there with a very intentional eye to let's really think about what's next. And so you put that experience, and he was very impactful on me, how he coached. But you put that on top of some of the other influences I had earlier in my career, it was really significant. And it really solidified my desire to coach. And I ended up playing the last 6 games in Miami that year. That was 2004. Nick Saban became the coach. And then 2 weeks later, I was the quarterback coach there. So, I kind of made that decision, was fortunate to have that opportunity and jumped on it.
So the mentoring, the learning was by committee, it sounds like. It wasn't one particular guy, but it was a bunch of guys at the highest level who had the competence to deliver knowledge that you soaked up, and then you took ownership of that. It became your own. You put your own stamp on it. And you're in Dallas, and Wade Phillips gets let go halfway through, or I don't know. I think you were 5-3. So yeah, about 8 games left. And what was it like when you had that conversation with Jerry Jones and he pulled you into his office or onto his yacht, or I don't know, up on the 40,000 high in one of his many jets and said, hey, Jason, you're going to be the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, it's not the situation you want to be in, to be honest with you. I mean, we were 1-7 to start that season, and I was part of that as one of the coaches. And I think we all took ownership as coaches and players that we had contributed to that start. But you and I both know it's part of our profession. Players get released, coaches get fired. It's just part of it. And I had that opportunity, to become the head coach midway through the season on an interim basis. And the biggest thing I focused on with myself and with the whole team was we have a game on Sunday. At 4:15 on Sunday, we're going to be kicking off against the Giants at the Meadowlands. So I understand the emotions of all this, but it's Wednesday morning now. We got to get to work. And so somehow, some way, you have to put that last thing behind you. We have to focus on the task at hand and go forward and start stacking good days on top of each other. And, we had a good group there, and, guys rallied around it. And fortunately, we had success that first week, and we won some games down the stretch. And then I got the opportunity to be the head coach on a full-time basis.
What was the conversation like when it became a more permanent situation with Jerry? Can you share something there? Because I know Jerry's such a maverick, and so energetic and such a big personality, complicated in many ways, but very a marketing genius, the way from my eyes anyway. What was that conversation like, and what was your feelings? And you tell your lovely bride, hey, we're in Dallas for a while, it looks like.
Well, obviously it was a great opportunity. I had known Jerry since 1992. as a player there. And then I came back in 07 as the offensive coordinator. So I'd known him for a long time, and we had a great relationship. And when we had some success down the stretch there, and he was going to give me the opportunity to be the full-time head coach, obviously it was incredibly exciting. And we had good visits, and I think it was something that I think he was excited about it, and I certainly was excited about the opportunity. He conveyed that to me, and the biggest thing that I wanted to convey to him is that he was going to get everything I could give, every minute of every day, and we're going to try to build a program that he and everybody else connected with the Cowboys would be proud of. And I felt like we did that over 9 years, and it was a great opportunity for me, and it was great to work with him and his family for a number of years.
You won 85 games there. You were the second longest tenured coach behind Tom Landry. Got to make you feel pretty proud to say, and I know, the exit is never fun when you get let go or not re-signed or whatever happens. Two things Bum Phillips always told me, as a player and as a coach, two things will happen to you. You get hired and you get fired. and I think we all know that going in. That's the risk of the high performance business. But it has to make you feel pretty good. I know you were 2-3 in the playoffs, but you won a lot of games there, man, and a lot to be proud of. As you left the Cowboys, what did you take away from that? It sounds like you've already told me a lot of it, but I didn't sense there was any animosity. And you went back to a team you had history with too, so there were other doors that opened for you. But can you put a bow on your Cowboys experience?
Yeah, again, the word I keep coming back to is gratitude. I'm just so grateful for that experience as a player there, as an assistant coach there, and as a head coach there. To have that opportunity for 9.5 years to be the head coach. I'm so thankful to the Joneses and everybody in that organization, the other coaches, the players, the support staff. It was amazing. And what we tried to do, like I mentioned, was build a program that we all could be proud of. And that was by far the most important thing to me. The way we conducted ourselves each and every day, the way our teams played on Sundays. Obviously we didn't win every game, but you want to come away from those experiences saying, boy, I like that team. I like the way they go about it. I like those guys. They represent pro football the right way. They represent the organization the right way. They're the right kind of role models on and off the field. And that's not to suggest in any way that anybody was perfect. We weren't. We made a lot of mistakes. There were a lot of things we were trying to do better. But I do think there was a striving thing that we tried to instill there. And, one of the things that we instilled right from the start there was this word fight. And every year, everybody got a T-shirt and a hoodie that just simply had fight, period, across the chest. And that's something that I felt like was the core of our program. We're going to fight every day to be our best, fight every day to accomplish our mission, fight every day to build a team we're proud to be a part of. And I feel like we accomplished that. We wanted to accomplish more. We wanted to make a run and win a Super Bowl. We didn't get that done. But I look back fondly on the experience with tremendous gratitude and appreciation to all the people that I was around. And then, like you said, to have an opportunity to come back to the Giants after that, a team that we're with, I was there for 4 years as a player. That was exciting for me as well. And we're trying to do the same thing. We're trying to build a program that everybody connected with the Giants can be proud of every time they watch us on Sunday afternoons.
Before we get to the Giants, how happy are you for Dak Prescott that he was able to get that 6-year deal done?
Oh, fantastic. We talk about the special people and the special players we've had opportunities to be around, and he's just absolutely one of them. We drafted him in the middle of the 4th round in 2016, and, Tony Romo gets hurt, and Dak comes in as a rookie and wins 13 games for us. And, the success that he's had, leading that organization. He's a fantastic player who's going to get better and better and better. He's a fantastic leader and a fantastic just person to have in that position. So really excited for him, really excited for the Cowboys and for the NFL. I'm glad that happened.
Do you see the Cowboys still being very competitive in the NFC East? Last year, let's face it, a team with a losing record won the division. So it's going to take a winning record, correct? Hopefully the Giants, right?
Absolutely.
You have any feelings on that one?
Yeah, well, I still know a lot of those players down there in Dallas, and there's a really good core group of guys that they have. So there's no doubt in our minds they'll be competitive. But, Washington's going to be competitive. Philly's going to be competitive. What we're trying to do is be the best we can be. So that's really where our focus is.
What are you most happy being, head coach or an offensive coordinator?
People ask me that a lot, and I can answer this honestly. One of the things I've always tried to do is embrace every opportunity that I've had. And I reflect back on 1989 with you in New Orleans, 4th quarterback practice squad. That was the best thing that I'm playing pro football. Are you kidding me? I loved every minute of it. Every so often you'd say, hey, why don't you come join us on Thursday after practice? We'd head down there. I'm like, I'm hanging out with you guys, and you guys are star grown men, great players, and I'm part of it. We're playing pool or playing ping pong, whatever the hell we were doing, and I'm like, so, I'm the 4th guy,
Right.
I'm throwing to receivers before the game in New Orleans Saints sweats, and then when I went to Dallas, I was the 3rd for a lot of years. Then I was the backup, and then I had a chance to start some games, and then as a coach, I was a quarterback coach, then a coordinator, then a head coach. And I can honestly say that I just tried to embrace every one of those opportunities and learn and grow and contribute. And, so I loved every minute of every day being the head coach of the Cowboys. But I love being an offensive coordinator. I love football and the chance to be a part of this.
I get the sense, and I know you well enough, I think, to say this, that what has carried you through all those different phases that you just described, and as you're going through them, it kind of startles me a little bit, because that wasn't my path. I was basically anointed to be, a kicker, and then I decided I was going to do that for almost 3 decades. But you really earned it. I mean, you really earned it at every level. And I think, to me anyway, and correct me if I'm wrong, what carried you through was a curiosity to ask questions and to be willing and be vulnerable, in a sense, to improve. Because let's face it, and I've said this many times, it's not when your hands are above your head where you're improving the most. And what you just described to me through that personal journey of yours really are a bunch of distasteful situations that you basically flipped on its head and said, no, these are great opportunities, learning moments. Is that accurate?
I think it is. And I would say this, when you have to earn things in life, that's ultimately when it's most rewarding. And when you use the word earn, the image that I had in my mind was of you making kicks game after game, year after year for 25 years in the NFL. You earned it too. Just because you were anointed, there are a lot of other guys who have been anointed too, but you approached it the right way and you earned it every week, or you wouldn't have had the opportunity. And you said it earlier, when you're at this elite level in the National Football League, you have to earn it. And that's what makes it great. That's what brings out the best in you. We had a guy named Scott Rathke visit with our coaches yesterday. He's a Navy SEAL friend of mine, and he's just a fantastic guy. I've known him for a number of years, and he spoke to our teams in Dallas, and he spoke to our offensive staff yesterday. And, it was amazing the things he talked about, how impactful they are and how they package them and present them to these potential Navy SEALs. But he talked about vision, about where you want to go in life, but he also talked about perspective. And he showed some great pictures where, if you look at this one picture, I'm sure you've seen it. It's the back picture of a beautiful young lady. And then if you look at it another way, it's a picture of an older woman who looks like a witch.
Right.
You've seen those. And he talked about that. There's always a couple different ways you can look at a situation. And providing perspective, he was talking to us as coaches. We can do that for our players, but we also need to do it for ourselves in life. And there's a lot of ways to look at things. And, my experience has been, if you're positive and you look at the bright side of things and you find silver linings and look for opportunities to grow and develop, that's when I've been most satisfied and happiest in my life. So I continue to try to do that.
This question might be for Joe Judge, but he's a first-year head coach, and you've been there, you've done that. How have you been able to communicate with him and relate to him some of the experiences that you've had that might be of value for him as a new head coach in the league?
Well, I think Joe's done a great job so far. And from my perspective, I'm really trying to learn from him. He's been around great coaches. He coached for Coach Saban in Alabama and Coach Belichick up in New England. So, I think he has a really clear idea about how he wants to build this program. And that's something that I was drawn to. So I'm learning a lot from him. I've always told him, I can be I can be a resource. However, he wants to use me. From experiences that I've had in the past. I'm always there for him, but I got my notebook and my pad in my hand every time I go into one of his meetings because I want to learn from him. And it's been a great learning experience for me so far.
You guys kind of turned it on at the end of the season. What caused that? Was it just that everything started to click, that you got comfortable with each other? It takes a while, new offensive coordinator, new head coach, young quarterback, and what was it that at the end, a lot of encouraging things happening if you're a New York Football Giants fan and player and coach. So in your mind, what was it? Was it a mental thing that clicked, a confidence thing, or we're getting on the same page here?
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. It's all those things. It's mental, it's confidence, it's getting on the same page. The last year that everybody in the world has lived in, this COVID 2020 thing, was a challenge for everybody and not unique to us, but, the way we had off season, I was in Dallas doing Zoom calls, for 4 months in the off season, and the structure of training camp and then no preseason games. When you're trying to put a program in place and systems in place with a lot of young players, those challenges get accelerated. And so, I think probably the short answer is, over time, we just had some more experiences with each other. On the practice field, on the game field, and hopefully we're approaching it the right way and learning from those experiences, and you grow over time. So, I think we did make some strides, as the season went on, and we were competitive, and we played some close games that we won, some close games that we came up short. But I do think we grew over the course of the season, and hopefully we'll just continue, that growth and development over this offseason into 2021.
Yeah, I think systemically, all the teams struggled with not being in front, like the coaches not being in front, hands-on with the players, especially if you had a young team and you have a young quarterback in Daniel Jones. And can you talk to me about him? What do you like about him, and what does he need to work on? Where are you with Daniel Jones?
I'm a big fan. Daniel's a great kid, and he really was raised well. He just approaches this opportunity the exact right way. He's a very professional guy. He's always prepared physically, mentally, emotionally. Each day when he comes in here, he wants to be great. He wants to be great for our team and do whatever he can to help us and to help grow and develop individually and help us be the team we want to be. So he's a very coachable guy. You can coach him hard. He responds the right way. He wants to get better. He does everything on his own that he can do to get better. And I think he's, like what we talked about earlier, he's just a case in point of just needs to play more. He needs to play more football at this level, like a lot of young quarterbacks. And we're going to try to give him the opportunity to do that and also try to create a better environment around him. The better you block, the better you run it, the better you get open, the better the environment is for the quarterback. And that'll help him get better. Then he'll help the other guys get better, and it all feeds on each other. So excited to work with him. He approaches it the right way. He's a great kid. And I think he's got a bright future.
I don't know if you remember, but when you and I were working back in 2001, there was a rhythm to it, and there was a structure to it, as we talked about. But also, one of the powerful things that I like to use were verbal triggers. I would use when I mentally trained, and triggers, buzzwords that facilitated a powerful, dominant behavior. Is that something that you have used with Daniel Jones? Verbal cues, certain buzzwords that may trigger something positive in him, or is that something you might consider?
Yeah, I think that's part of coaching. Just the idea that, we talk a lot about, the ability to coach on the run. You love to be able to do a dissertation on the history of football every time you communicate with a player, but typically the opportunities are shorter and quicker, and you have to convey something, like you said, in a short period of time to help get, the player's minds right. So there are a number of different things that, he and I might talk about, in regards to some technical thing that he's working on. Whether it's where his eyes are, the red stripe down the middle of the field, or what he's doing with his feet, or getting the ball out, or some of those things. So I think what you're referring to is being able to communicate quickly with short bursts, and that's what we try to do with him.
Would you say that Daniel Jones then is a field guy or a technical guy, mechanical, in the way he thinks about throwing the football, in the way he structures his leadership role as a quarterback, how he reads defenses? Certainly reading defenses, Brett Favre read defenses too, but I felt like he was more of a field guy, where you could say maybe Brady would be more of a methodical, technical guy. Is that,
It's a great question. And I think what I would say is probably the best athletes, the best football players, and the best quarterbacks that I've been around have a nice combination of those things. The guy who says, I'm all feel, well, you need to know what the fronts are. You need to know what the coverages are. You need to know who breaks me down when I'm hot. You need to know that. The game's too good. You might have been able to do that in high school where you're so much better than everybody. But the guys at this level, the coaches and players, are really good. So I don't think you can approach it that way. But I've never been around a great player who didn't have instincts and feel. And ultimately, that's line one for a quarterback. Even though Brady is a methodical guy, he's got a great instinct and feel for the game. Troy Aikman, very methodical, instinct and feel. One of the things that Troy used to always say is he would tell the receiver, just go play. I know it's a 12-yard in, but if you have to run into 10 because the guy's sitting there running it, just go play. And so, you have to be measured, disciplined, route depths, timing, footwork, all that. But then there's that other element. When that 3 technique comes rushing up the field, you got to go play. And so that's something that we'll always talk to our guys about. And sometimes it takes you a little while to get there. It took me a while to get there as a player. I can remember Troy Aikman telling me my first year in Dallas, he looked at me and said, what are you looking at? What are you waiting for? The safety's in the middle of the field. The X receiver's by himself. Take 7 a hitch and throw the comeback. End of story. It doesn't matter what the strong safety's doing. As soon as you see that, do that, period. And it was a great lesson for me. Like, I had this impression that the best players saw everything and they knew everything in every play. Really, they don't. What they do is they focus on what's most important and they react and respond off of that. And that was a great lesson for me. That helped me immensely as a quarterback. I was thinking about it too much. I was trying to be right too much. And a guy like that said, the hell with all that. Go play. Keep it simple. And, it's the same thing with Daniel. Sometimes there are steps that you have to take to get to that point. And that's what we're working on with him.
That's interesting that you bring up Troy and that lesson, and maybe 2 other words to use for what you just described is situational awareness. That to understand the down, the depth, the yardage, and the yards to gain. Obviously, let's face it, we want to advance the ball, and then where your receivers. Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. Let me play a name game with you if you don't mind, and whatever comes to mind when I throw these names at you, it doesn't have to be a long answer. It can be a 1 word, or it can be a sentence, because you've played and coached with so many great players, overachievers, some that underachieve, but regardless, there's a wealth of knowledge there, and I'm just very interested in hearing your thoughts on these guys. Tony Romo.
Instinctive.
Situational awareness. Yeah, I like that. Instinctive.
Great feel and vision when he played, and just had that feel that was unique. Probably goes back to his days. He was a great basketball player growing up. He's also a great golfer. He just has this instinct and feel as an athlete, and it came out in his play.
Good analyst, too, on television. I'm telling you, he names the plays before they happen. I don't know how he's doing it, but you could do that, too. I know you could. Sean Payton.
Smart, bright, great energy, great juice.
I just had him on the show. He was great. He was, he said something interesting to me, Sean did. He said, when I look for players to add to my team, and he came to the Saints in 2006, he said, I look for uncommon players that are different, players that are willing to take a risk and take and embrace the challenges. I really like that. It resonated with me because I kind of feel like I was an uncommon player, and I was right. He was talking to me, even though I was a specialist, and that's how he built his team. And I think as a coordinator, as you go through and you're coming up on the draft, looking for uncommon players who fits the New York Football Giants' overarching philosophy might be a good idea too. So I got that from Sean. Feel free to steal it.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it.
All right, let's go Nick Saban. You kind of touched on Nick, so I think and Jerry, we've been there. Dak, we've been. How about Ezekiel Elliott?
Oh, I think he's a great football player, and I think he has all the qualities that the best players I've been around have. He has a tremendous desire to be the guy, and he's an incredibly instinctive player. He wants the football in the critical moments, and when I was the head coach there, we gave it to him, and he always responded the right way. I think he's a special young man, and he just really needs to lock in and continue to grow as a player as he goes forward here, because he has a chance to have a fantastic NFL career.
Let's just briefly touch on the triplets. Let's go Troy Aikman. You've mentioned the tough love he gave you on that route and the indecision you exhibited, and he said, "Let's go, let's fire that rocket." But Troy Aikman.
Troy Aikman's one of my best friends in the world, and he's just to have the opportunity to have been around him for 8 years as a player, every meeting, every practice, all throughout our careers together in Dallas. It was just one of the most invaluable experiences that I've had, and I'm so indebted to him. He's been such a great friend, has done so much for me, and I love being around him. We continue to be great friends and stay in touch and stay close. So I love him to death. He's one of the best quarterbacks ever to play the game. He was an incredibly unselfish guy. He made a conscious decision to say, we're going to put the team first. His numbers could be up there and as gaudy as anybody who ever played this game physically. His talent level and precision was off the charts. To be able to have the arm strength that he had and also the accuracy and decision-making, he was incredible. But in all the big moments and all the big games, he was always the one that made the big plays for us at the critical time. So a great, great football player. I think a little bit underappreciated how great he is, even though he was a first ballot Hall of Famer. But I love him to death.
Well, Emmitt Smith.
Emmitt might be the most instinctive football player I've ever seen. He had such a feel for the game, his vision, his ability to find soft spots in the defense and just continue to make yards was amazing to me. And one of the things that I always reflect on with Emmitt was ever since he was at Escambia High School in Florida, there were arrows on him. We have to stop that guy. He was the focal point of every game plan by the opposing defense, and he just continued to produce year after year after year after year after year. And to think that he's rushed for 18,000 yards as the leading rusher of all time is just amazing. But he was a tremendous football player, instinctive. His vision was unique and rare, but the toughness and determination that he demonstrated week after week was really inspirational to me. So fantastic player. A great person too. I love him.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's top shelf. I asked Emmitt what his 2 favorite running plays were. In other words, when Troy was in the huddle and called that play, he licked his chops. Do you know the 2 plays he talked about?
I'm sure he would say lead draw. Lead draw right was one of them, and then the other one would be slant left.
So it was a stretch play and then a cutback off the stretch play. I don't know if that's what you just described, but let's just go with that.
Yeah. The one thing, and again, the few opportunities I had to play when I was in Dallas, every time I went into the huddle, I told Emmitt, I said, get ready. I'm going to hand it to you and I'm going to throw it to you. So just get ready, because he had this amazing ability to make everyone else's job easier, because you'd throw it to him. And I remember throwing him a swing pass, and he went 66 yards with the swing pass, So, and still we laugh to this day that every time I got in the huddle, I'd hit him and say, get ready, here we go. And he kind of chuckled because he knew that burden his whole life, and he always responded the right way with it.
You had the horses up front, though, to move some dirt. if you know what I mean. So, and another guy who really wanted the ball all the time, the playmaker, Michael Irvin.
Yeah, again, just a dear friend. Michael was a special player. Michael was the energy behind those teams, the competitiveness that he brought every day, the leadership that he provided. He was an amazing teammate in that he knew everybody, made a conscious effort to get to know everybody and connect with everybody. The story that I always tell about Michael was we used to throw a lot of balls together. I used to throw the ball, because you didn't want to waste Troy's throws. So, I spent a lot of time, with him throwing routes. And I can remember it was right before training camp one year. I was out of town. I get back into town. It's a Sunday night. It's early July in Dallas. And, my phone is there's 5 messages. When you get back in town, call me, meet me up at the facility. So I get back in town. It's Sunday night. It's probably 7 o'clock. I go up to Valley Ranch, and Michael's there. And he's got his weighted girdle on, his weighted vest on, his shoulder pads, his jersey, his helmet, and his Walter Payton mouthpiece that he used to wear. And, it's 7 o'clock at night, but it's 100 degrees out in Dallas. And we did what we call metabolics, which is 10 routes in a row where you jog back, take a 2-minute break, go to the other side, 10 more routes. We did 5 sets of metabolics, and we probably said 3 words to each other. We had done the routine so much, hitch, slant, quick out, 12-yard hook, bang 8, 3, 4, 5, 9, 0 out to the other side. Okay, here we go. He'd sucked down 2 Gatorades, and there he went. And I can remember walking off that field that night, and it happened a lot. But, this specific night, I was like, that's it right there. That's what it takes. Look at this guy. He's got the weighted vest on. He's got the weighted girdle on. He's got his shoulder pads on.
Insane.
Helmet in his mouth. And we didn't say a word to each other. We just did our thing. And then we said, hey, great seeing you. Boom. Okay, that was it. And it just really was like one of those light bulb experiences for me. And for all his, he's kind of this loud, using his hands, using his voice. For all of that, he was such a substantive person, substantive player who worked so hard at his craft and wanted to be great and wanted us to be great. And again, the experience to be around like a guy like that was special.
That is an awesome story. And that, it is what it takes. And you guys, you didn't say many words, but you were powerfully communicating, brother. I know that's for a fact.
Oh yeah.
Okay. One more and I'll wrap it up with you, brother. There's so many names. Let's go Michael Strahan.
Again, you were here with him. He was such a special teammate to me and such a great friend. I can remember coming here from Dallas, and he it was like with open arms. We really got to know each other well and spent a lot of time together back then, and a lot of great dinners together. And he was obviously a special, rare player. He was hard to block, and and then I go back and I'm coaching with Dallas. And now we got to block him, and I'm like, I know this guy. He's hard to block, trust me. But he's a great friend. He was a great player, continues to be a great friend, and I love him to death.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention Saquon Barkley. He's a special talent. He was hurt last year. How excited are you now to be able to have his ability, his skill set, and game plan with him in the huddle? That's got to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, and I told him when we first met, I'm coaching in Dallas for his first couple of years, so we play him 4 times. And you talk about the attention and the game plan on one guy. It was like, we cannot let this guy beat us. And it was the classic case of we did a great job against Saquon. If you take away that 66-yarder on the screen and then that 72-yarder on that weak side zone, we held him to 21 yards. That whole deal. So. He's one of those. He's one of those kinds of players that he gets a ton of attention, but he shows up every week, and he's such a fantastic young man. And unfortunately, he had the injury last year, but I know how hard he's working to come back, and can't wait to get back with him and work with him and try to help him get better and help this team be as good as it can be. But he's a special young man.
I want to finish with a nice memory that I had with you. You and I were in Kiowa Island. I think you know what's coming. We were in Kiowa Island for a beautiful ceremony. Kerry Collins, our quarterback in 2001, great dude, got married, invited us to Kiowa Island. We played golf. And one evening, I don't know if it was the first night or whatever, but one evening we had a couple of glasses of wine together, and you decided to make a beautiful speech. Can you kind of take me through that speech again? Because there's a couple of things in there that kind of resonated with me.
Well, it was the typical night before the wedding type. It was kind of like rehearsal dinner type thing, but it was outside, beautiful setting like you described, and different people are going up to talk, and it's a mixed group of people who are there. It's not just all football players.
No, it was not.
So I go up and say some kind words about Brooke and Kerry Collins, and it was just one of those things that I just thought, you try to be appropriate given the situation. And I walk back and I'm standing next to you and like, what are you, running for mayor of Kiowa Island? What was that? I've never seen a canned speech. You really gave me a hard time on it. And
I would like to thank the mayor of Kiowa Island. I'd like to thank the city council. I was like, let's have another glass of wine, Tish. This is great. Oh, my goodness. So just for the listeners out there, in case this doesn't –
So you went up there and you told a couple of great Dane jokes, and brought the house down about Eskimos and ice cream.
Well, actually, I did that in a team meeting before we played the Dallas Cowboys on Monday night. I stood up at the team meeting. I don't know if you remember this.
I remember it.
And Fossil goes, hey, does anybody have a joke? So I stood up. I had ice cubes in my hand. And I go, do you guys know, have you ever seen an Eskimo pee? And I dropped the ice cubes out of my hand, and they fell on the table and rattled around, and everybody roaring. And then I followed it up with, I got a Danish joke. And everybody's, okay, you got a Danish joke, right? So I tell the joke, and I tell it in Danish, and everybody's like, crickets. And I think at that point, Strahan said, sit your ass down. By the way, we won that game in overtime on a field goal, and you held a beautiful, fluffy ball for me, and you did that the whole time I was there, brother. I appreciate it.
Well, can I tell one more, Morten Andersen?
Sure, go ahead. Go ahead.
It was in Dallas. We went down there to play, and it might have been the same game we're talking about. But you remember the night before the game, you were deathly sick. You were throwing up. You were just a mess when you came into the locker room. And you had this really bad look on your face, and you were sweating, and you're like, I'm not good. We'll get through it, but I'm not feeling very well. So we went out for the warm up, and I can't remember. I think you had a 12 kick, maybe 14 kick warm up that you would do every week. And we'd start over here, and we'd move our way back, and right.
Very precise, precise.
Right hash, left hash. It was our routine. And in all the games up to that point, I can honestly say you never missed a kick. It was boom, boom, boom. It was just like a Danish machine, like nothing I've ever seen. But we go out for this game against Dallas, and you're not feeling well. And the first one you kind of pull to the right, not very good. Okay, you hit the upright on the next one. We slide back, you make it. You miss one, you really shank. It was like if you kicked 14 of them, you made 8 of them. You missed. It wasn't good. I'll never forget this. I think in that game you went 4 for 4, and you were like ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I said, we should be going for it on 4th down. This guy's not going to make any of them. And you drilled it. And so, again, one of my favorite Morten stories, a sign of a true professional.
Well, I just want to end by saying I would like to thank the mayor of New York City. I'd like to thank the mayor of East Rutherford, where you are, where your place of work is. And as always, my man, any time spent with you is a good day and good minutes, man. It's been a lot of fun. Kept you too long, but that's what happens when we have stories. We had a lot of catching up to do.
Absolutely. Morten, I love you to death. I consider you a great friend, and I can't thank you enough for having me be a part of this thing. And
it was fun. It was fun. We'll make it look and sound great, man.
Among your many talents, you're really good at this.
So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Let's keep doing that.
Okay.
Show the world your genius. on and off the field.
Well, I'm coming to New York this year with Jennifer, and we would like to come see the New York Football Giants. One of my favorite teams that I played for. It was really only a year there, but man, with I have to say, with Tish and Mara families, they just treat you unbelievably. And I know John Mara's there now and continuing the legacy of the New York Football Giants. Go Blue! And I wish you all the best in this next year. I'll be following closely. And I'll be up there. I'll be calling you for tickets.
Well, great. We'll break some time together too.
Can't wait. See you, buddy.